Hey everybody, this is Tom here, just with another update, letting you all know where we're at, what we're looking to do soon, and how everything's been going. So first of all, we just did GammaCon the week before last, I think, and it was really fun. We got a lot of changes in just before that, where we had a bit of a test session the night before, just checking out how certain changes we had were going at that point. We got a lot of great feedback, so we actually did something we don't normally think is the right thing to do, where we didn't lock down our build there. We actually put in a bunch of whole other changes to the UI and other things, specifically for Gauntlet, to try and let people try and test some new stuff out, and we got some really great feedback there. So without further ado, I'll start showing you some of the changes we made because of the feedback we received, both before GammaCon and having seen how those things played out in effect. Let's start with the changes we've made to the Spiral UI, continuing on from the video last week. The video piece in which I gave you a preview of the upcoming changes, where the bottom info bars are displayed for each of the skills, has now been implemented for everyone, and for the rest of the skills which aren't even able to be selected yet. But as you can see as you level up, you can see previews of what those values will be, and those are all representative of like whenever we change what these values are. It's for design reasons, just messing with stuff to see if it's more fun. It will change in the info bar, so we don't have to customize that, but that's more on the developer end of things. So the leveling wheel has now been placed above the players again, and we are planning to have them separate from each other so that they don't overlap as they do now. But you see at the top we have the information on the wheel, the bottom it is the information down the bottom, and you can see the different UI switching in and out really quickly. We had some issue with, at first in the first implementation, it wasn't switching out fast enough and it could get stuck, but we fixed up all that stuff along with some other things. Also, if you ever have a skill available, you will see a floating plus above your character, and just before the GammaCon event started, we had some feedback saying that players are never really taught how they can sort of level up, so we've added that sort of notification down the bottom, harassing people to open up the leveling wheel with right trigger. And we're not sure if that thing will stay. At least it won't stay in how it is in the current iteration, where it's just constantly throbbing like that and looks how it does now. We're going to have some hints along that sort of direction, but we're not sure where we go. We're thinking also maybe as players are learning the first version of Gauntlet and stuff, there can be something floating in the background area of the level, where the black void is now, which reminder, won't be a black void forever. We've had that question a few times. This is going to have art in it when we finalize some more of the design of the levels itself. But yeah, so we've got a big effect for when you level up, big smash of particles that's pretty satisfying to go through. We've got the floating thing above you notifying that you can level up and you have skill points to spend, and there's all the numbers in the wheel itself telling you how many skills you have to spend at any one time. The bouncy thing down the bottom, and I'm looking to also get a little experience bar down the bottom where it says 0 typically beside your 2 skills on the left and right, which that little wheel that will go around it, that empty space there right now, is supposed to be showing your experience until your next level. But that may not change depending on how we end up finalizing the experience system, whether it is as it is now where you're leveling up every 2 checkpoints in a fixed fashion, or whether it's based on percentage of the spiral completed, so we can have different variations on how long a spiral is. All that is up for change, so that part may not be implemented. In the next one we are unsure. But those are the biggest changes for the Gauntlet UI. Also, the left and right abilities down the bottom do flick in and out depending on whether or not they're active, so if you've used it and it will go away and sync behind the thing, so you know you can't actually activate it. We're looking to add some control pumps on there that will dynamically change to whatever controller you're using, but that's where we're at with that one. We also now have a team respawn system for the players in Gauntlet. So no longer will just all of you dying lead to an instant failure of the level. Players can now make choices as to when they can want to respawn when they're dead. There will be a prompt that pops up when everyone is dead, showing that they can respawn using the top live system. Though at any time people can use it, but it uses a life from the global life pool. So 4 lives total throughout the entire map, and you can't replenish those, so you want to only use them when you really need to, or when you want to accelerate something. That's how it is at the moment. It's working out pretty well. Probably the biggest thing is that we need to teach players better that it is a team respawn system that doesn't replenish, so they shouldn't just use that whenever they can. But that's worked out really well. It leads a lot better into actual anticipation of failure. So before it could feel somewhat cheap if your whole team got wiped and then that was just it. Whereas now that will happen, but you'll be able to know how far you're away from a total failure. You can see it slowly get closer and closer, and it feels more fair that way rather than it just suddenly appearing, and it could happen quite early in the earlier iterations, though it is much less challenging. So we're going to have to tweak that a bit depending on the play numbers and seeing what happens there, but we feel like it's working much better as it is now. Okay, now let's give you all a bit of a walkthrough in the inner workings of Gauntlet in the game at the moment. So the last time we showed you this, we had a bunch more different lanes for Gauntlet working, and they were all strung together, but we'd just manually place them, and they were sort of fixed in that fashion. So not only do we have more designs and more polished designs for our lanes at this point, we also have a new way of creating them, which can lead to some interesting things in the future. So a simple way I can think of showing you this is over here is the inspector. It sort of shows information about the certain item we have selected at the moment. And you can see we've got lane P finale. So we've restructured the way that all our stuff works, which should allow us to create stuff faster and create more different things. And basically what you're seeing here is we've got one lane, which is the finale lane, so the final circle down the end there. And those are all the drones that are active inside of it, and all the other obstacles. And these will enable or disable based upon that lane. And if you go further up into that similar hierarchy, we can go into the actual lane controllers. And I think that is in this master object called Gauntlet here. So it's the Gauntlet Master Manager. And you see here names for each of these lanes. There's a straight easy, heartbeat, NWN, which I'm not sure what that stands for, but narrow, wide, narrow for that one, and so on and so forth. And those are the orders in which these are spawned. We can actually go in, and the most simple thing I can do is do that. And then if I click rebuild, it near instantly repopulates this area with that map. With that map item. So we can create a lot more variations once we have all this sort of stuff down. And as you saw with the inside of each lane itself, where it shows all the lane pieces and what is inside of them, for instance these enemies, we also have instantiated like our object spawners. So before, we would have had some trouble going forth, and once we actually finally gave these things art and additional functionality, we would have had trouble replacing all of it in like an efficient way. Now we have a thing which spawns lanes, and then inside of lanes we have things which spawn all the obstacles. Rather than spawning the things themselves, it spawns a clone of them, so we can change that original base figure and allow it to repopulate throughout all the levels when we actually update it. So soon we should see the new version of the bears in here, probably in the next update video, when we've got a work in progress version of that, where it's not just these cylinders anymore as the base drones. And that's when this sort of thing will really start like showing itself off. Even these walls, everything inside these lanes is based upon this new spawning system. So we're going to see a lot more variation, a lot more polish come from all this stuff quite soon. So that about marks the end for the changes in Gauntlet that we've made, at least the major ones. There are plenty of bug fixes and other small minor things which you may notice if you're in the alpha. And of course there's a bunch more in the trolley, but let's move on to some other changes in Hunt and the rest of the game. So we've finally managed to replace the Embiggen power-up. Embiggen, for those who remember, was the power-up where you got much bigger and were able to sort of smash through rocks to escape through players' traps. But a lot of times it caused confusion. Players would try and run through the rocks, get killed by, or like try and run towards the bear, thinking that they were able to take it on because they were bigger, thinking that they were a formidable force. That wasn't true, so we decided to rework the functionality of it into something that makes more sense aesthetically and maybe had some different purposes and didn't lock you into that big mode so you can dig into other stuff. So now what we've landed with is a sort of earthquake thing which travels forth beyond you. It smashes through players' rock walls, but it also has the added benefit of if you're able to aim it well enough, and if the other players aren't careful, you can actually stun them, knocking them out for a second, ready for them to be killed by the bear. It's a lot of fun to use. It really serves the purpose we had intentionally intended for the Embiggen, and that extra stun ability just creates just another layer of chaos in the game. And we're really having fun with it in the office. It's got some bugs right now, for instance one where if players are killed by it, they will sort of like float around like a little UFO for a while, but that should be fixed by the time we put it out on the Steam build. And you can also see that we've got a new bear variation in there, the Sun Bear. His rim shader is a bit crazy right now, so I'm going to tweak that, but he's pretty much finished. And that brings us one step closer to finally getting our Franken Bear design in there, which is sort of, as you can imagine, sort of mixed up monstrosity of all the original bears, and I'm really looking forward to help making that one. But for now, he's in there along with our silly train bear, which we accidentally left in. But yeah, we really look forward to having all that stuff completed and moving on to our final critter, and we hope you like the new Sun Bear design. I also spent a while in the last couple of weeks working on one of our weaker designs that hasn't been touched up on much in the map department, Crystal Crash, or Crystal Cargo as we're calling it now, where the original concept of this was basically all we had for it was it's this sort of round thing and it's got trains in it, but we never even had the trains ready. Now we've got all the train functionality in there, and we decided that we should take another pass on it, sort of set it as our goal for our next map to be fully polished, just like all the other ones, all the nice art in it. And so to do that, we also had to get its design nailed down, because we didn't really feel like it was like where it needed to be. It was much too big and there wasn't much going on within it. And it's really become one of our most dynamic and interactive environments that we have in the game. So as you can see, I went through a number of iterations in the 2D phase, just trying to sort of sharpen up the overall design, trying to keep what made the map cool to begin with, which was the basic train idea and some of the basic shape. But I really went through and severely changed it in the first iteration, and from there sort of more carefully tweaked it to try and reach a point where it was just a lot more fun and flowed better for the players. In this, you can see the orange tracks, or the orange sections of the map. They represent the train tracks, which then lead into the different train tunnels and stuff. The train tunnels blink when a train is coming to let players know when a train is going to be coming across them, so you're not just getting crushed or blocked off without any warning. The big sections of the map you see in the bottom and running down the middle, that is a conveyor belt you're going to see soon running through the map, and it really fits in with the theme of this being sort of like a production, like factory area thing running through a town. Which is really going to come together once you see the art and like ideas we have going for it there. And there are buttons on either side of the map that allow players to change the direction of the conveyor belt, to mess with people who are on there, and in general just sort of create chaos for the players in the middle of the map. So it lets you interact with others from afar, to either push them to the grinders, maybe push them back to the bear, they're not expecting it, or the slammers through the middle. There's a lot of stuff that can go wrong for people when they're in that middle section, so you've got to be really careful. We pushed this through and we played it a bit, and we thought, it's still a bit big. Players don't meet with each other that much, and it doesn't flow well enough. So we went through, changed it again, and we're pretty happy with where it's at right now. It's a lot smaller than it was before. There's super huge amounts of stuff going on. You don't have to go too far away to interact with the buttons, which before it felt like it was too out of the way to actually make a meaningful difference in the game. And although this isn't the final version of the design, we are going to be tweaking especially the design of the conveyor belt area and so forth. This is really close to it, and we're actually moving forward to bringing this into a finalized art version right now. So simultaneously tweaking the design and art right now to bring this up to the standard of, for example, Panda Peak and the Graveyard level. And that should be in there soon. It doesn't actually take us that long to complete all the level design assets once we have the things themselves made. So once we have the models and textures in there, like actually putting them together and creating a level. For example, the Graveyard I think took about a week to 2 weeks. Like, it doesn't take us that long to put the stuff together, it's just the content creation which takes a while with such a small team. So we're really looking forward to how this will look once it's all together there. Alex has also been hard at work creating a bunch more modifiers for the game beyond just disabling and enabling power-ups. We currently don't have anything in the menu for the modifiers at the moment to enable or disable these functions, but you can, once you have the build, just press and hold insert plus a number key along the top of the keyboard, not on the numpad, and that will activate from 1 to 0 all the modifiers we have in there additionally. We are planning for even more than that, so we'll have to start adding in the actual menu functionality before we even enable those, because we're out of numbers. But right now we're going to show you a few of them. First of which is the fast characters modifier, which does pretty much as it sounds. The characters move about 75% faster, I believe, including the bear, so everything is just hectically fast paced. It can create a lot of chaos. It actually seemed to play pretty well. There is this one jump which gets a little bit crazy in the Panda Peak level, but other than that, it's pretty fun. We're thinking maybe toning down the speed a little bit, but the basic idea is there, and you can see a little bit of gameplay footage from that. Yeah. And then here we have the Snake Rocks modifier, which does it again as it sort of sounds, where you have this permanent trail of rocks behind you. You're not holding down your button to dig, you're just sort of leaving this trail behind you as you go around. And at the moment there's a little bit of performance issue, especially with 4 players and the way that we've got the rocks set up, because they were never intended with this art asset to be spawned like this. So we're probably going to have a different piece of art and the way that these things come in and design it a little bit differently with how they're spawning behind you. But it's actually pretty fun. It creates a lot of like variation in the gameplay right now. And yes, you can combine these modifiers. You can have super speed and the snake modifier and whatever these other modifiers are at the same time, so long as they don't specifically conflict with the other one's functionality. Like, it might be a little bit crazy and super hard to play, but as long as it doesn't break the game, we're totally willing to let people try it out and try and do that sort of stuff if they want to. And of course there are those other 8 or so modifiers in there we've got right now, but we're going to leave them out of the video for now and just let people in the alpha discover that for themselves when they actually go and try it out. So again, just hold down insert plus any of the number keys and you'll see them enable or disable and know what they are. So also in terms of some basic art for Hunt and other modes, with the critters, they are now being re-exported and imported into Unity and set up so that they can display different animations for different states. So right now there's just a single keyframe of animations. That means just a single stiff pose, where they're either curled up, standing on all fours, or back on their hind legs, and they transition between those, whether or not you're stopping in the character select menu, etc. But they're no longer just these balls that are sitting there. And setting up that system through the animations will allow me to more easily create the actual animations further on down the road and just switch between those when that actually becomes available. But I'll be working more on the final animations once I've got the final characters modeled and ready to animate alongside the others. Prisa has also been adding in a bunch new vegetation for both our new maps and current ones, and also going back and changing the existing plants that we had in all the levels to use the new Unity 5 shader system called physically based rendering, with the addition of normal maps and a thing which determines how much sort of light casts back off the surfaces of stuff called like the roughness map. We've really managed to make a lot of the vegetation sort of pop more and look more three-dimensional. We really like how it's looking right now, and the new stuff she's made looks great. And most of that you'll see sort of come into effect in the final version of the Crystal Cargo map. And that about marks the end of the major sort of updates we've had since the last video. You can of course check on our Trello page to see all the other little nitty-gritty things which we haven't covered yet. So these are all the changes we've done since the last Steam build. And here in the doing panel we've got what we're going up to next. So by the time we have another video, you should be able to see a lot of these changes in effect. So things like Little Bear Drone completed by Corva and implemented with some textures and stuff through working with Prosa, to the new UI system, which I'm working on now, which should have a much more cohesive, functional thing for letting players select their abilities, etc. when they're joining the game and being able to choose maps easily. The art pass for the Crystal Crash level, which we were showing you earlier. Some little polish things with the UI and a lot of bug fixes and stuff from Alex, but also some implementing some new features. Just check out a Trello. So it's www.trello.com/BZJTCIY/BEARZERKERS-development. Although, if you want to make it a lot easier for yourself, you could just click on the link in our description below. Thank you all for watching and keeping track. We should have another video up soon. I want to talk to some people about moving into beta, what kind of feedback you guys have for us on that, how you feel about whether or not we're ready soon. But yeah, look out for that video soon. It should be coming up in the next week. Thank you, and have a good day. Bye.